Roles reversed is the theme of the jam. I'm live on Twitch during the announcement and I immediately start brainstorming stuff. For once, I really enjoy the theme and I have a bunch of ideas. The only thing is that my time is limited. Very limited. It's Friday night and I'm leaving for vacation on Sunday and I'm not even sure I have free time on Saturday. At that moment, I'm not thinking about entering the jam, just prototyping something in 2 or 3 hours. I decide to go with the idea of moving the level instead of the player, and I like circles, so I go with that. The idea is to have a circle with obstacles on the walls to bounce the ball where you want. To make it more interesting, I could spawn things to collect and maybe add traps or enemies. I start by drawing the level with Godot's built-in polygon. I use code to make a perfect circle on which I can control the amount of points. Glow up. This is a circle right now. Pretty bad circle, I think you would agree. And then, boom. Pretty circle. Much more pretty. Such pretty. This could be useful to change the shape of the level into a square or an hexagon, for example. I go with a very minimalist and colorful style as it looks good enough for what I'm making. Then I add rotation on the level and a ball. I make the ball using a character body and a simple bounce behavior when I detect a collision. Okay, it's cool, but it lacks a way to change the ball direction, so let's add obstacles. I quickly design something and put it on the borders of the circle. Now the ball has something to bounce against, and you can try to direct the ball where you want. It's better, but it's still pretty boring, right? So let's add things to collect. This adds a goal to incentivize the player to bounce the ball in different directions. With that, I'm also adding a score count to make collecting the yellow things more satisfying. I make the text big in the background of the level. That way it's really visible, but it's also not too distracting. I make the number go big because goo goo gaga brain likes big numbers. The game is taking shape nicely, so it's time to add a bit more juice. I make the circle scale when there's a collision and I also animate the score counter. It counts up to the new value and also scales quickly. If you want to learn how to make juicy games with God of War, check out my course on Udemy. Use the link in the description to learn all the techniques I use to make my game juicy. I'm thinking about different things, but the simplest is to spawn enemies, the same way I spawn the yellow coins. Of course, I make them red, because red is danger. I add an appear animation to show where the enemy will be spawning, so you have time to react. I animate the rotation, and boom, we have enemies. Now, in the spawn code, I simply draw a random number and spawn an enemy instead of a coin 30% of the time. I also add particle spawning from the circle when there's a bounce or a coin grab to fill the void around the level. The only thing you have to do in this game is grab coins, so I want to make it satisfying. Glow is still broken in Godot 4.1, so I fake it around the coins by adding a very dim light with a slow blink animation. At the moment, there's nothing when the player dies, so I make a simple tween sequence to zoom the camera in and slow down, so you have plenty of time to cry about losing your high score. After that, the game simply restarts. I touch up a few things and work on an appearing animation for the level. At that point, the game is pretty much done. The only problem that has been bugging me the whole time is that the obstacles are fixed and it's boring. It's already pretty late in the night, but because I'm basically done, I decide to try to make kind of a procedural obstacles. My idea is simple. I define a bunch of different shapes, then I spawn them in pairs in the middle of the circle. I push them against the borders using the radius value, and finally I rotate them to be at different locations on the circle, and surprisingly it was actually not too hard. Okay. Hey, it's actually kind of working. Oh, it kind of works. I had a few problems at first, but it was fixed really fast. The cool thing about this technique is that I can randomly select the number of obstacles, their type, and also their placement, which means I can also change the layout in-game. So I set up a timer and change the obstacles every 15 seconds. Pretty cool stuff. I do the finishing touches, add a few sound effects, and boom, there it is. Circ Obstacle is done in a bit more than 8 hours. Play the game on itch, tell me what you think, and if you'd like to see it as a mobile game, tell me in the comments below. Check out the source of this game made with Godot 4.1 on my Patreon, and thanks for the Patreon for their support. Bye!